instead of, you know what I mean?
I think the answer is really family. A healthy relationship between a man and a woman that a child is seeing, being taught how
Mm.
to be a man, being taught how to treat a woman being taught how to treat a man, because it goes both ways. I think that
Mm.
that's really the answer that we need, because it starts young, and you might as well get them in the home where they can see it, and that's the only thing that they know is a good healthy relationship. So it really starts with the family.
So, we were coming up, a lot of stuff was just so normalized, I remember trying to like touch girls' butts and like do all this different stuff, like fight a guy if he said this, and and I thought all of those things like made you, as time has progressed, and the culture has changed, and then as we've grown up and maturity has changed. Wouldn't you agree that growing up you kind of thought those types of things were manly? You had an affinity for action movies and some upper level misogyny in your subconsciousness.
But certainly being able to defend yourself and being able to attract the type of woman that you want. Yeah, yeah, of course.
It What's weird is that I think we still grew up in a time where we didn't really think about things. At least not in the black community. We just sort of like existed. So it was sort of weird as these last few years have gone on that we hear about toxic masculinity, and we have all of these different things, and we have to have these conversations where we end up like challenging these notions of masculinity and asking, when you think about, you know, generally females get along with gay men better than straight men, you know what I mean? And really specifically in the black community, like black men hate gay men. And it's like all of these little weird things about our identity and where we feel like we should be in the household, and we realize there's more to life than being like horny all the time or trying to fight all the time, that we have these deeper emotions, but at the same time it's sort of like uh I don't know, in a way we've been socially traumatized, you know what I mean? And all of these different things. And it's like now a lot of the stuff that we've been trained to do and what society, our family, our friends told us and like conditioned us to be like, now that's toxic masculinity. And it's like, God damn, who you want us to be? In the last year, we've watched this beef unfold with, Lil Nas X and Boosie. Um, and it's weird that Lil Nas X has that Boosie has such a big problem with Lil Nas X, when all the different like toxic masculinity things that Boosie has done. So it's like, I don't know, it's just this is weird. Like I feel like a lot of men, and black men in particular, feel like these things are a bit of an affront to like identity. You know what I mean? Like there's this big conspiracy that the LGBT community is trying to like brainwash the youth into being a certain persuasion.
So you said that they think black men think that there's some sort of a conspiracy or something like that. I don't necessarily think it is. What do you want to finish that thought?
That was pretty much it. That I mean, if you call it
Yeah.
the conspiracy part, yeah, that was pretty much it.
I mean, and I would say to the Boosie thing, just going back to that because you brought that up first. I mean, does Boosie represent all black men?
Not at all,
No.
but he certainly
And
speaks for a section.
well, I think a lot of people don't agree with that lifestyle per se, but they're not very vocal about it, and they probably just don't care. They just, for them personally, they don't agree with it. There's nothing wrong with
Mm.
that. As far as it being like a conspiracy, there definitely does seem to be a thing where these type of characters or this type of lifestyle does seem to be kind of pushed in media, because you'll
Mm.
oftentimes see characters like Superboy recently. I'm sure there's other characters like this, but you'll see something like Superboy. Now he's, gay, whatever the case is. It's like Well, why is that even really a thing? Like, he's that's really got nothing to do with his character. And if you want to make his character gay, I mean, if you want to make a gay character, just make a new character. I think a lot of people feel like, for the sake of pushing an agenda, a lot of story and a lot of characters are being used and hijacked for the sake of
Mm.
pushing a story. And so I think that that's where a lot of people get this idea of a conspiracy. Whether or not there's a conspiracy or not, I don't know. I do know that there does seem to be a lot of recent representation of that, and a lot of what's called, quote unquote wokeness. And a
Mm.
lot of movies seem to be adapting that, whether it's through feminism or it's through LGBT or whatever the case is, whatever social issue that particular media decides to take on. I think that oftentimes that's pushed in front of story, plot, and characters, and that's really why we watch these things. That's why we consume the media. If you're talking about movies and games and things like that, is for story, plot, and characters. And it just kind of feels like, in certain instances, that's kind of pushed to the side in order to fit this, character in this, maybe gay, whatever the case is, or black, whatever, whatever it is. A lot of people are just tired of that. I think that's maybe I shouldn't say tired of it, but it's somewhat becoming a bit of fatigue from it. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like you're being lectured every time you go to the movies.
Yeah,
So
but also you got to think like it's sort of like what we've been normal to and defaulted to. Like there's black movies, right? Like,
mm,
and you immediately recognize a black movie purely just like you generally don't point out a movie as white. You generally
mm,
won't. You just call that a movie, and it's because
mm,
like whiteness is the default, and in the same way like heterosexuality is the default. So like I remember like if you ever seen American Pie, Blue Mountain State, these shows are like bastions of like toxic masculinity and like over sexuality and shit.
mm.
Like maybe we just went to the wrong high school, but that shit was aggressive.
Yeah, I didn't actually see Blue Mountain State or the other one. I do remember seeing it at Walmart, but I never actually watched it. I'm assuming it's something like American Pie.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I get what you're saying as far as like the whiteness being a default. But to be honest with you, heterosexuality is sort of a default in most organisms, certainly in humans. I'm not saying that you shouldn't represent gay people, have gay people in media. They just shouldn't be pushed at the expense of story. You know what I'm saying? The character's gay, like Batwoman. Batwoman's gay. I like her in the animated movies, but in the TV show, it's like there's so much of a political backdrop and so much of a lecturing in that show. I think that the ratings kind of show why, that sort of an approach is not good. You know what I'm saying? It's like, come on now.
You give a
People don't want to be lectured.
Yeah, and it's like
Most people
you
don't
can
care either.
you can send a message without like beating you over the head with it.
Yeah, it's like
But
super religious.
I think that we've kind of gotten a little bit into the weeds here, but
Yeah, we have.
in terms of what would you say is your masculinity story? And would you
My
say that there's
masculinity
anything
story.
that you have grown to see as toxic?
Definitely, I would say something like not allowing yourself to express and feel or even admit to a full range of emotions. I think, and when you do that, when you try to repress emotions, you end up blowing up. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're adding more and more pressure. At some point, the vessel, which is you, is going to burst. You know what I'm saying? That stuff is
Mm.
going to come out in a very unhealthy way. Whereas if you processed it properly as it was happening or soon thereafter, you wouldn't have to worry about these things building up. I think that a lot of us live by this idea that we can't show emotions. And to be honest with you, this stuff is kind of promulgated by, society. It's promulgated by other men. It's promulgated by women. You know what I'm saying? So I think we do have this unhealthy standard of, not being able to express and show emotions because it's seen as weak, which I understand. Like, a man should be stoic to a degree, but at the same time, there's a place where you need to release your emotions and need to process them properly as a human being, not only as a man. So I think that if I were to say that I believe in such a thing as toxic masculinity, which I have a problem with that word, I would say that that would definitely be an example. But then again, I don't necessarily agree totally with the usage of that word in that way. I don't.
So what is your issue with toxic masculinity, or just the phrase
Word.
when you yourself can admit that some notions of masculinity can be harmful to both men and women?
Well, see, I think that that's not really masculinity for me. Say, I'm holding in my emotions or whatever. I'm not processing things properly. That's not necessarily masculine. So why would I then attribute that toxic behavior to masculinity? That's not masculinity. A man would know how to appropriately uh, process his emotions. So I'm not going to say that that's toxic masculinity. There's nothing toxic about being a man. I think too, oftentimes that word toxic masculinity is used as a weapon against men to say that there's something that is innate within men that is wrong, which is not the case. Okay. And you don't see the flip side of that, because women can be just as toxic, but you don't see toxic femininity gaining popularity. You don't hear that frame as much. I mean, that phrase as much. You don't hear it at all. I don't even think that's a thing. So no, I don't accept that.
It's sort of weird because I think that you have such an issue with it because it makes you feel personally attacked just for being a man. But how I perceive it is that a lot of masculinity is a performance. It's like kayfabe in wrestling, where it's like, this is not how the wrestlers really would act, but they got to keep up the kayfabe. You know what I mean? And that's where I can see the masculinity becoming toxic. Is that it's overly stoicism, and it's like we all have this concept of what is a man, when truly at the end of the day, I mean, what is a man? We have redefined and codified the definitions of a man plenty of times. Honestly,
I mean, I would say
high
like what you just said.
heels were some shit that men originally wore.
Right, right. I have no problem with that, but I think that you said that it's an act. But the thing is that masculinity is not an act. Masculinity is who you are as a person, because who you are in your being. That's masculinity. Men are masculine. I think part of the problem and part of the reason why we have this quote unquote act is because a lot of us in the black community in particular did not grow up with fathers. So we have to act because we didn't see appropriate masculinity. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being a man. There's absolutely nothing wrong with masculinity. But when you don't have a good example of that, then you do over exaggerate to show that you're a man because you don't know how to show it any other way.
So what is inappropriate masculinity?
I wouldn't even use that word. I would say that there's inappropriate behavior. I don't have to attach masculinity to it. That's a misnomer. I think that's disingenuous.
If you're doing something to live up to the vestiges of an idea, you have now made it. You know what I mean? It's like patriotism is good until you take it to a toxic level and decide every other people from every other country is inferior. You know what I mean?
Right, but let me ask you this: Do you act like a human, or are you just a human?
Yeah.
You act like a human.
We get into these things of like like the role or the gender construct that you perform in society versus like your biological gender. You know what I mean? And we don't really talk about enough of like, where the fuck do these things actually meet? Because a lot of shit is pretty much a role.
A lot of it is, but a lot of it is based on biology. So let's say men went out and got the bread, they got the butter, whatever the case is, they got the meat. They did that because biologically they were stronger, more muscle mass, denser bones. They were able to they were faster too.
But I think that it's like I think you get into this thing of men versus women a lot, which is ultimately like unhelpful. What I'm saying is a lot of this stuff isn't like I can get that people have now taken the concept of toxic masculinity and motherfucking ran with it. It's like men suck and all of this shit. And it's like all of a sudden you find yourself lumped in with dudes and all of this stuff that you ain't never even been like. So it's sort of like, what the hell? But at the same time, I think that these conversations are helpful because there is a lot of weight that is attached to the concept of being a man. You know?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that I believe in this idea of man versus woman per se. I think that the way it's framed in the media, when you see something that's an imbalance, when you see something that's wrong, and you know that it's untrue, then you kind of, so let's say, just to give an example, let's say that you have two opposing forces, just as an example, and you see that let's say you have a scale, right? Let's scratch the other thing. Let's say you have a scale, right? And you got two sides. And you see it needs to be balanced. You've already established it needs to be balanced, but you see that the scale is going more so on this side because it's got more weight on it. And you're just trying to balance the scale. I don't see this push against women, toxic femininity, and all this other stuff. I see it against men. So what I'm saying is that this is not true. This is not a reality, that you can't demonize men for being men. And so it's not so much that I'm against women, but when I see this imbalance in favor, to the detriment of men, then it would behoove me to say something.
I get exactly what you're saying, but I think a lot of stuff has been co-opted and taken to a bad place. When originally I think it was just meant to be more like, it's sort of like this little buzzword phrase that goes around where it's like lots of women know women who've been sexually assaulted, but no man knows a rapist. And it's like, it's sort of like this thing of like a lot of feminist speakers and writers felt like men weren't holding other men accountable to the way like society sort of reinforces certain behaviors. Like I think we spoke about this before, but it was sort of like Amber Rose got into an argument with Rev Ron and Tyrese a few years ago, where she had to explain to them that like, if I got in a bed and I got butt naked and I told a man like no, he should respect that, and they was like, what? And it's like this concept of like we can't control ourselves, or you know what I mean?
I think the first question you have to ask yourself in that situation is, why'd you get in bed? Why'd you get in bed with a man naked? So while I don't think that man should necessarily act upon his urges, a certain amount of responsibility needs to be taken up with that woman. Like, why the hell are you doing that?
She belongs to the streets.
It's stupid. Yeah. Don't put yourself in that. Like, that's so stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's so stupid. But I'm not saying that that she should be raped or anything like that. But that's just really fucking dumb and inappropriate, I think. So a certain amount of responsibility needs to be taken there. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do stupid stuff. Yeah. So I mean, how do we solve this idea? Let's just say that we have these toxic traits as men nowadays. How do we solve that? Like,
I think we got to understand that like society has shifted, and it's shifted so much, but we built society around certain ideas and we've allowed for certain bad behavior, and now we're creating like new bad behavior with the whole like all men are terrible ideology, which is like literally the same problem, just with a different, you know what I mean? It's like just changing the color of a swastika. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that it's like we gotta really be willing to, both men and women, to put ourselves in uncomfortable conversations of why do we do the things we do, and why do we allow the behavior that we allow? Why do we reinforce these things? Why aren't little boys allowed to have their emotions? And then you wonder why when he's a teenager, he's angry as hell, or when he's a man, he's angry as hell, or he can't communicate with his wife or his family well, because he was never actually allowed to. So I think with a lot of these things, we just got to understand that society has shifted. You know what I mean? Shit, even wars are fought differently. Even traditionally hard jobs are done differently. All of these concepts of masculinity are they don't need to be replaced, but we need to think about the nuances of this. You know what I mean? We don't live in a day and age where a woman can't get a good paying job and support herself. You know what I mean? Why I gotta pay for a date? Why don't you pay for the date? I thought you liked me. Like,
okay.
so-
Good luck changing that. Good luck changing that part. That's the crazy thing about it.
I think that men have to be willing to really. I think probably one of the most toxic concepts that we have is the concept of the women in our family or the women closest to us need protection. You know what I mean? Versus all women need protection. And then to the same concept to females, we got to understand that like no two people are the exact same, regardless of their gender. And although the society has pushed these concepts on men and men have reinforced these concepts, every man is gonna fucking take these concepts differently, honestly. And maybe we should start to see people as who they are. You know what I mean? Instead of, you know what I mean?
I think the answer is really family. A healthy relationship between a man and a woman that a child is seeing, being taught how to be a man, being taught how to treat a woman being taught how to treat a man, because it goes both ways. I think that that's really the answer that we need, because it starts young, and you might as well get them in the home where they can see it, and that's the only thing that they know is a good healthy relationship. So it really starts with the family, and that's my I think that's the best solution. How do you fix broken people now? I think therapy. And like you said, just having that conversation, like, why do I do what I do as a man? Why do I do what I do as a woman? And just try to understand each other and put our biases and our preconceived notions, because I think a lot of women aren't really ready for the emotions and they aren't ready for a man to like pour his heart out, because they've never seen it. I don't think that they can handle it.
That kayfabe is broken. Like if you were watching wrestling, all of a sudden these two wrestlers are supposed to hate each other or be a certain way. They're like, hey, you know what I mean? The kayfabe is broken. So it's like, what? Yeah. I don't believe this anymore.
Right. And so, I don't think that women are really ready for that. And I think a lot of men know that, so they kind of close up. So,
yeah. Which is, yeah. So I guess we got to get better at just being equipped for each other's emotions and just really, really challenging each other and being willing to grow until we can start to create these more healthy dynamics, you know what I mean, between men and women, so that children can start to see it.
Right. And this concludes another episode in Nakamas.
Like, comment, and share your thoughts about toxic masculinity. How do we?
Do you think it exists? Do you think it exists? And tell us what you want us to handle next or talk about next in the comment section.
And if you're liking what we're doing here, we have a Cash App, we have a Patreon. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Just push us out there. We're trying to challenge some ideas here.